What if I told you there's a hidden place somewhere in reality, a place that doesn't yet exist? It seems impossible, I know, but imagine opening a map on your phone in the middle of the night and finding an unknown location, nameless, unregistered, with no surrounding streets, and yet feeling like you've been there before. A strange sensation, almost impossible to explain, as if your mind recognizes something that never happened. Have you ever experienced that? There are things that simply don't make sense. Small glitches in reality that most people ignore because they seem too silly to be real. A clock that skips a few minutes without explanation. A street that looks different from the last time you walked down it. A conversation that gives the unsettling feeling that it already happened exactly that way. And perhaps the strangest thing of all is that, deep down, everyone has felt that there's something wrong with time. As if reality has small, invisible cracks. That's exactly what happened to Daniel. It all started on an ordinary night. Light rain, lights flickering outside the apartment, and that strange silence that only exists after 2 in the morning. Daniel was aimlessly browsing the internet when he received a notification with no sender. There was no message, just a coordinate. He almost ignored it, but there was something different about it. A feeling that was hard to explain, as if that sequence of numbers had been waiting for him for a long time. Then he opened the map, and he saw, in the middle of a completely empty area of the city, there was a marked spot, a place with no name, no photos, no history, no information whatsoever. Just a small gray symbol, like a digital error lost within the system. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the feeling of familiarity. Daniel swore he knew that place, not exactly the location, but the memory of it, like an old dream forgotten deep in his mind. And at that moment, something inside him changed, because the more he looked at that spot on the map, the more details began to emerge in his head. A dark corridor flashing red lights, the distant sound of an empty station, muffled voices saying things he couldn't understand. But there was a problem. That place didn't exist. No urban records, no buildings, no architectural plans. It was like searching for something that had never been created. And yet, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about it. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. In the following days, strange things began to happen. His computer would turn on by itself in the middle of the night. Files would appear corrupted for no reason. Old photos had different details each time he looked at them. In one of them, taken years ago, there was a building in the background identical to the one that appeared in his dreams. But that was impossible, because the building in the photo didn't exist yet. And this is where things start to get disturbing. Perhaps you think this is just a coincidence. Perhaps you think we're talking about paranoia, delusions, or some kind of psychological distortion. But there are reports scattered all over the internet of people who claim to have seen impossible places. Locations that appear for a few seconds and then disappear. Subway stations that don't exist on any map. Abandoned buildings where time seems to work wrong. Endless corridors, repeated rooms, metallic noises coming from empty places, paradoxes, broken time, reality glitches. What if these failures aren't accidents? What if reality is trying to hide something? Daniel began obsessively researching the spot on the map. Deleted forums, deleted videos, people mentioning the same gray symbol before disappearing from the internet without a trace. The more he investigated, the more he realized that this place seemed to exist only for those who were looking for it, as if the very act of discovery were part of the problem. And then, in the quiet of the early morning, a new notification appeared on his cell phone screen. This time it wasn't coordinates, it was just a sentence. You've been here before, and perhaps that's exactly why stories like this affect us so much. Because, deep down, everyone has experienced a moment that's too strange to be just a coincidence. That sudden feeling of déjà vu, a dream that seems too real, an unfamiliar place that awakens an impossible memory. As if there are parts of reality that our minds still can't fully comprehend. So I want to ask you a sincere question. If you received a message like that in the middle of the night, would you have the courage to follow the directions? If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what has resonated with you the most so far. I'd love to know if you've ever experienced a similar situation, a strange glitch, or an inexplicable feeling involving time, memory, or reality. Sometimes, the most unsettling accounts appear in the comments, and this transforms this channel into something much bigger than just videos. It creates a community of people who also question these small flaws that almost no one notices. And if you enjoy this type of mysterious animation, full of paradoxes, psychological suspense, and disturbing theories about time, be sure to leave a like. It may seem simple, but it helps much more than people imagine. It's what makes this content reach new people who are also looking for different stories, unsettling experiences, and mysteries that stay in their minds even after the video ends. And of course, if you want to keep following narratives like this, with reality glitches, impossible places, and stories that make us doubt what is real, subscribe to the channel now. Your participation here is what makes this project grow and continue bringing more and more deep, strange, and cinematic stories like this one. Because what happened to Daniel that night was far from being just a coincidence. In fact, that message sent to his cell phone was just the beginning. And the more he tried to discover the origin of that message, the more reality itself seemed to begin to react. Daniel tried to act as if nothing was happening. He put his cell phone away, turned off his computer, and repeated to himself that it was just accumulated fatigue. But some experiences leave silent marks on the mind. And, after that message, his perception of the world began to change in a way that was impossible to ignore. The first signs were small, almost imperceptibly. The kitchen clock was exactly 3 minutes slow every night, always at the same time. People on the street seemed to repeat the same movements on different days, and there was something even stranger. Certain places in the city began to awaken in him an absurd feeling of familiarity, as if parts of reality were trying to fit into a forgotten memory. This began to affect his decisions, his routine, and even his mindset, because when doubt enters someone's mind, everything around them takes on a different meaning. Common sounds seem like hidden messages. Coincidences begin to look like warnings, and the more Daniel tried to find a logical explanation, the more he realized there was a hidden truth behind it all. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the real impact didn't come from the glitches he saw. It came from the silent transformation that began within him. Daniel no longer fully trusted his own sense of reality. At times he was certain that certain conversations had happened before. At others he felt he was living through small fragments of time out of order, as if his mind were accessing scenes that shouldn't yet exist. And then something impossible happened. One ordinary morning, while passing by an abandoned station in the city center, he saw the gray symbol again, the same one from the map, discreetly drawn on an old wall, almost erased by time. That couldn't be a coincidence, because no one but him should know about that symbol. At that moment, Daniel realized something unsettling. Perhaps he hadn't found that place by chance. Perhaps the place was finding him first. Comment below. This makes sense to me. After that day, Daniel plunged into a silent obsession. It was no longer just curiosity. It was as if something was pulling him closer to a truth that remained hidden in the background of reality. The more he researched the gray symbol, the more he noticed a disturbing pattern. Ancient accounts spoke of people who found impossible places even before they officially existed. And this is where things start to have a much bigger impact. Some theories claim that certain spaces don't exactly belong to the present, places trapped between different timelines as if time weren't an organized sequence, but several overlapping layers happening simultaneously. Sometimes, for unknown reasons, these layers fail, and when that happens, small fragments of the future end up leaking into the present. Daniel found abandoned forums describing the exact same sensation he was experiencing. People reported recurring dreams of endless corridors, buildings without entrances, and empty stations lit by red lights. Many said that, before encountering these places, they had begun noticing simple glitches in their daily lives. Sounds out of sync, broken schedules, objects appearing in impossible places. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because perhaps the most frightening thing isn't the existence of this place lost in time. Perhaps it's the reason why some people are able to perceive it. According to a forgotten theory discovered by Daniel, the human mind functions like a kind of antenna. At specific moments of emotional transformation, stress, or mental disruption, some people begin to pick up fragments of other possibilities of reality, as if certain decisions create invisible cracks capable of connecting different versions of time. It was at that moment that Daniel noticed something unsettling. All the stories ended the same way. People didn't find the place by chance, they were summoned to him. And the more he connected the dots, the more he began to feel that his own journey may have started long before that first message appeared on his cell phone. Write this down. I'm on this journey too. Daniel spent days trying to ignore the feeling that something was off. But the more I tried to return to normal, the more reality seemed to respond strangely. It was as if small glitches began to appear around him every time he tried to distance himself from the investigation. And then the glitch happened that changed everything. One quiet morning, while browsing through old internet files in search of answers, Daniel found an extremely old video hosted on a practically abandoned forum. The recording was of low quality, with distorted audio and an impossible date. At first it looked like just a regular shot of an empty street at night, but a few seconds later, the camera slowly turned to a building illuminated by red lights. The same dream building, the same corridor, the same gray symbol marked at the entrance. Daniel froze, because that place didn't officially exist yet. According to all urban records, that building would only begin to be erected many years later. There was no logical explanation for that recording to exist. And what was most disturbing was realizing that the video didn't seem fake. There was no editing, there was no manipulation. Just an uncomfortable feeling of hidden truth leaking through the screen. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the real impact of that discovery wasn't just the existence of the video. It was an almost invisible detail that Daniel noticed when he paused the recording frame by frame. There was someone standing at the window of the building, watching the camera. When he zoomed in on the image, he felt his whole body go cold. The silhouette looked exactly like him. Same posture, same face, same dark coat he was wearing at that moment. That completely destroyed his mindset. Because, at that moment, Daniel understood something terrifying. Perhaps the place lost in time wasn't only connected to the future. Perhaps he was directly connected to it. And the more he analyzed the recording, the more he noticed small details hidden behind the scenes of the video. clocks showing impossible times, people crossing the street in repetitive movements, shadows appearing before the bodies themselves, as if reality itself were failing in front of the camera. Comment below. I would be scared too. After that recording, Daniel realized he was embarking on a much bigger journey than he had imagined. It wasn't just about an impossible place or glitches scattered throughout reality anymore. There was a hidden pattern behind it all. And the more he investigated, the more he began to find traces of other people who had followed the exact same path. The problem is that none of them seemed to have fully returned. In the old archives of abandoned forums, there were disturbing accounts of people obsessed with the gray symbol. Some said they heard metallic sounds in the middle of the night. Others claimed to repeatedly dream of empty corridors illuminated by red lights. But there was something they all had in common. After a certain point, the accounts simply stopped, without explanation, no goodbye. It's as if those people had disappeared in the middle of the investigation itself. Daniel came across the case of a girl named Eliza who disappeared 7 years ago. Before vanishing, she wrote a strange message on a forgotten internet forum. The place doesn't appear to everyone. It chooses who can see it. After that, no activity, no records, no clues. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because the most frightening thing wasn't the disappearances themselves. It was realizing the mental transformation that was happening before them. They all started the same way. Curiosity, doubt, a desire to discover the hidden truth. But, little by little, something changed. People were beginning to lose track of time. They confused memories. They spoke of encounters with different versions of themselves. And then Daniel noticed a disturbing detail behind the scenes of these accounts. Many described the exact same moment before disappearing. They said they had found the place when they finally agreed to go in. It wasn't a hidden location on the map. It was almost like a decision. As if reality itself opened an invisible door for certain people at specific moments in their lives. That night, while reviewing the old files once more, Daniel found a photograph faded by time. There were 5 people in it, all of them missing, and behind them was someone wearing the same dark coat that appeared in the 1998 recording. Write this down. That got disturbing. Daniel stared at the photograph for several minutes. The longer he looked at the image, the more he felt a strange pressure growing in his mind, as if some invisible piece was finally beginning to fall into place. The man standing behind the missing people didn't just look like him. He looked like him, only older, more tired. Like someone who already knew exactly how that journey would end. And it was at that moment that Daniel came across the most disturbing theory of all. In a hidden file at the bottom of a deleted forum, there was a phrase repeated several times by different users. The place only exists because someone tried to find it at first. It didn't seem to make sense. But the more he analyzed the accounts, the more he noticed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. All the missing people began to recognize the place after hearing about it, as if the mere idea of its existence began to create invisible connections within the human mind. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because perhaps that is the true impossible paradox behind it all. What if the place lost in time wasn't built in the past or the future, but by people's own obsession with trying to find it? Think about that for a moment. Every time someone researched the symbol, dreamed of the corridors, or tried to uncover the hidden truth, the place seemed to grow stronger, more present, more real, as if human thoughts, memories, and decisions were feeding something hidden within the floors of reality. And that began to completely transform Daniel's mindset. He no longer knew if he was investigating the place, or helping to create it. Ancient accounts spoke of people who began to see impossible details after delving too deeply into the investigation. Doors appearing where there had once been walls, metallic noises emerging in silent environments, reflections moving a few seconds later. But there was an even worse revelation hidden behind the scenes of those files. According to one of the missing users, the place didn't just want to be found. He wanted to continue existing, and perhaps that was the reason why so many people never managed to fully recover after the first contact. That night, while trying to shut down his computer and forget all about it, Daniel received a new message on his cell phone. This time there was only one photo, a photo of his apartment door, taken from the outside. Comment below. This doesn't seem like a coincidence. Daniel stood motionless, staring at the photo on the apartment door. The silence in the hallway outside seemed heavier than ever. No sound, no movement. Just that suffocating feeling that something had finally crossed the barrier between the impossible place and his reality. It was that night that everything started to make sense in the worst possible way. After hours of connecting accounts, old images, and deleted files, Daniel found a sequence of documents hidden within an abandoned server. They weren't random internet theories. They appeared to be internal records. Studies on temporal distortions, human behavior, and perceptual flaws linked to the gray symbol. And in the middle of those files was a disturbing revelation. Perhaps the place that doesn't yet exist wasn't such a mistake. Perhaps it was a leak. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because, according to those documents, certain structures created in the future began to generate impacts even before they were completed, as if time was suffering small cracks capable of spreading fragments of future events to specific people in the present. The building with the red lights didn't officially exist because it was still under construction in another timeline. But, for some unknown reason, parts of that reality began to escape ahead of time, memories traversing time, sounds emerging before their origin, people dreaming of places that haven't yet been created, and the scariest thing was realizing who was being affected by it. According to records, emotionally unstable, mentally exhausted individuals, or those undergoing major personal transformations, were the first to notice the glitches. It was as if certain phases of the human journey made the mind more vulnerable to seeing what would normally remain hidden. Daniel then realized that perhaps he had never been chosen randomly. Perhaps the place had found in him exactly the kind of mind capable of perceiving the flaws. And there was one last revelation hidden behind the scenes of those documents. Anyone who got too close to the truth began receiving increasingly direct signs from the other reality. Photos, coordinates, voices, distorted reflections. As if the place were trying to open a permanent passage. At that moment, Daniel's cell phone vibrated once more. New message received. No text, no number. Just a short video showing someone standing inside his apartment, looking directly at the camera. Write this down. Reality doesn't seem so stable after all. Daniel dropped his phone on the sofa the instant he saw the video. His heart raced. The image clearly showed someone standing motionless in the dark corner of his room, just watching. The worst part wasn't the intrusion. The worst part was that the recording seemed to have been made at that exact moment. When he slowly raised his eyes to the apartment, everything was silent, empty, but the feeling of presence remained. It was at this point that reality truly began to crumble. In the following days, Daniel could no longer distinguish between memory, dream, and present. The hours passed strangely. At times, the clock moved forward too quickly. At others, it seemed frozen. People repeated identical phrases in different places, as if parts of the world were trapped in small, invisible cycles, and there were glitches everywhere now. Lights flashing in perfect sequence. Reflections that took a few seconds to copy your movements. Metallic sounds echoing in empty corridors. The city itself seemed to be slowly losing its stability. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because perhaps the collapse of reality doesn't happen all at once. Perhaps it begins silently, in the background of human perception. Small cracks in routine. Small distortions in mentality, until a point is reached where the mind can no longer sustain a fixed version of the world. Daniel began noticing people standing and staring at him in the middle of the street. Some disappeared when he tried to approach, others seemed to know him without ever having met before. And then came the most disturbing revelation of all. The gray symbols started appearing everywhere. On traffic signs, on the switched-off television, in reflections, in windows, as if reality itself were slowly being replaced by something else. The transformation was now inevitable. Ancient documents already warned, when a place lost in time approaches its definitive connection, the world around it begins to lose coherence. Spaces change, people forget basic details. The line between past, present, and future ceases to function correctly. And Daniel realized that it might already be too late to turn back. Because that night, looking out the window of his apartment, he saw something impossible in the middle of the city. The building with the red lights was finally there, as if it had always existed. Comment below. This looks like a broken dream. Daniel stared at the building illuminated by red lights for several seconds, unable to breathe properly. The most frightening thing wasn't the existence of that impossible structure. It was realizing that no one around seemed to find it strange. Cars continued to pass by normally. People walked down the streets without even looking up, as if the building had always been there. And perhaps that was the most unsettling part of the entire journey. Reality hadn't changed only for Daniel. She had reorganized herself. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because, at that moment, Daniel finally understood the hidden truth behind it all. The place lost in time did not destroy reality. It slowly replaced the old versions with new possibilities, as if the entire world could be rewritten without people even realizing it. Memories were being adjusted. Details were disappearing. Old decisions ceased to exist. And those who noticed the flaws ended up trapped between two different versions of the same world. When Daniel left the apartment and walked to the street, he felt something impossible happen. Some people began to look at him with recognition, not normal recognition. It was as if they already knew who he was, as if they had been waiting for him for a long time. A woman standing near the traffic light flashed a strange smile before saying softly, "You took a long time to come back, to go back." That word destroyed what little mental stability I had left, because, at that moment, fragments of memories began to surface in his mind. Red corridors, metal doors, voices repeating his name, and the suffocating feeling of having crossed that building before countless times. The inner workings of his own mind began to merge with something larger. Then Daniel noticed the most terrifying detail of all. The gray symbol no longer appeared only around him. It was emerging inside the apartment itself, on the walls, in the mirrors, even on the switched-off screen of the cell phone, as if the connection were complete. And that's when he saw it. Reflected in the dark glass of an empty shop across the street, someone was standing directly behind him, wearing the same coat, same face. But this time, the reflected version smiled first. And before Daniel could turn around, his cell phone vibrated once more with a single message appearing on the screen. Now you're part of the place too. Comment below. I wouldn't trust reality anymore. And perhaps that's the question that remains after all this. How many things in our reality exist without us realizing it? How many strange details go unnoticed every day because we are too busy to look closely? Sometimes, a simple feeling of déjà vu, a recurring dream, or a misplaced memory can carry much more meaning than they seem. If you've made it this far, this kind of story probably affects you the same way it affects me, and that's exactly why this channel keeps growing. Each video becomes almost a collective journey, where ideas, theories, psychological mysteries, and glitches of reality connect with experiences that many people have never dared to discuss aloud. So, if you want to keep up with this kind of content, you can subscribe to the channel. That way, every time a new story, a new paradox, or a new disturbing theory about time and reality emerges, you can continue on this journey with me. And if at any point during this video you felt that strange sense of identification, leave a like, not as an obligation but as a silent way of showing that this connection happened. I also want to know who stayed with me until the end of this story. So comment below, this reality seems wrong. I'll read the most intriguing comments very carefully. And there's a video over here that perfectly complements everything we've just explored. Click on it and continue with me there. Because honestly, the deeper we delve into these mysteries, the harder it becomes to see reality in the same way.